The grand hall of the Galactic Consortium sparkled like a sea of stars, its crystalline walls refracting light from a dozen different suns. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the entrance, her ceremonial uniform crisp and neat, watching as representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations filed into their seats. The annual Consortium Summit was about to begin, and Earth's delegation had been relegated to the furthest corner of the chamber, barely visible from the central podium. Quite the turnout this year, Marcus Rodriguez, her security chief, muttered under his breath. His hand unconsciously brushed against the neural transmitter disguised as a simple collar pin, their only link to Project Umbra back on Earth. Sarah merely nodded, maintaining the carefully crafted expression of polite interest that had become Earth's diplomatic trademark over the past decade. The other species had grown used to this face, the face of a civilization they believed to be barely worth noticing. The Archon of the Zarkax Empire, a towering figure with iridescent scales and multiple sets of eyes, took the central podium. His melodic voice, translated through the chamber's acoustic field, filled every corner of the vast space. Distinguished representatives of the civilized galaxy, he began, mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. We gather once again to celebrate our collective achievements and chart the course of our shared future. Sarah noticed how his primary eyes deliberately avoided the human delegation's corner, a calculated slight, one of many they had learned to weather with practiced patience. The presentations began, each civilization proudly displaying their technological achievements from the past cycle. The Meridian Collective showcased their latest quantum fold drives, capable of crossing galaxies in mere weeks. The Void Dancers demonstrated their gravity manipulation technology, creating miniature solar systems as easily as a child might build sandcastles. When it came time for Earth's scheduled presentation slot, the Archon's voice dripped with barely concealed contempt. And now, we shall hear from our younger members. The Earth delegation may share their progress, if they have any to report. Scattered laughter echoed through the chamber. Sarah rose slowly, her movements unhurried and deliberate. The neural transmitter at her collar warmed slightly, right on schedule. Most honored Archon, she began, her voice steady and clear. Earth thanks the Consortium for this opportunity. However, we feel our current developments are still too preliminary to warrant the Assembly's valuable time. The reaction was immediate. Whispers and clicks of derision filled the air. A representative from the Silicon Consciousness, their crystalline form glowing with apparent amusement, called out, "Perhaps they've managed to improve their primitive combustion engines." More laughter followed. Sarah remained standing, her smile unwavering. Let them laugh, she thought. In less than 20 hours, everything would change. The day continued with a parade of technological marvels. The hegemony of 1,000 suns displayed weapons that could unmake matter itself. The quantum archaeologists revealed time-viewing devices that could peer centuries into the past. Each demonstration was accompanied by sidelong glances at the human delegation, waiting for signs of awe or envy. They found none. Sarah and her team maintained their practiced expressions of mild interest, taking notes on outdated tablet computers, another carefully chosen prop in their decade-long performance. During the evening recess, Sarah stood by one of the observation windows, gazing out at the artificial constellation that was Station Zero, the Consortium's pride and joy. Marcus joined her, pretending to adjust her translator earpiece while actually checking the neural transmitter's frequencies. "Control confirms all systems are go," he whispered. "The Umbra fleet is in position. Entirely undetected, just as we hoped." Sarah allowed herself a small, genuine smile. The first of the day. 10 years of playing the humble newcomer, she murmured. 10 years of carefully calculated technological displays, always staying just behind the curve. 10 years of accepting their condescension while we prepared. Was it worth it? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Tomorrow, when the hegemony attempts their protective occupation of our solar system, they'll find out exactly what humanity has been doing all this time. She turned from the window, her reflection ghosting across the transparent metal. We didn't spend the last decade developing bigger guns or faster ships. We spent it perfecting what humanity has always done best, finding ways to survive against overwhelming odds. As they walked back to their quarters, they passed a group of Zarkak's diplomats, who immediately hushed their conversation and moved aside, as if afraid to catch some primitive human contagion. Sarah and Marcus bowed respectfully, playing their parts to the very end. In their secured room, Sarah finally allowed herself to relax slightly. The neural transmitter displayed a countdown in her peripheral vision. 1842, 17 until the hegemony's planned incursion into Sol space. 1842, 16 until Operation Umbra would reveal that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't building bigger weapons or faster ships, it was making them invisible. The consortium believed they had spent 10 years observing a primitive species struggling to catch up. In reality, they had spent 10 years watching a carefully crafted illusion, while humanity built something unprecedented, a fleet that could move undetected through the supposedly all-seeing eyes of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in matching their advanced technology, it was in thinking around it. And as Sarah prepared for sleep, she couldn't help but smile at the thought of the hegemony's mighty armada arriving at Sol, expecting to find a helpless primitive world, only to find themselves surrounded by ships that, until that moment, no advanced civilization had believed possible. The game of appearances was almost over. Soon, it would be time for humanity to show its true face. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, Admiral Helena Santos stood in the heart of Operation Umbra's command center, watching as holographic projections showed hundreds of stealth vessels moving silently through the solar system. Each ship was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, not because they were the biggest or most powerful, but because they were impossible. At least impossible according to every other spacefaring race in the galaxy. "Status report," she commanded, her voice echoing in the vast underground chamber. Dr. James Chen, Sarah's brother and the architect of the quantum shadow drive, stepped forward. His eyes gleamed with the same quiet intensity that had driven him to crack the code that the rest of the galaxy had dismissed as theoretical nonsense. "All ships report optimal functionality. Admiral, the quantum field matrices are maintaining perfect coherence. We're literally dancing between the moments of time, just as we planned." He gestured to a particular cluster of readings. "The consortium's quantum detection arrays are passing right through our ships as if they're not even there." Helena allowed herself a small smile. The alien civilizations had grown so dependent on their advanced technology that they'd forgotten one of humanity's most crucial traits, the ability to think laterally, to approach problems from completely unexpected angles. "And the hegemony fleet?" she asked, turning to the tactical display. Colonel Yuki Tanaka, her strategic operations chief, brought up a new hologram. "Right on schedule, Admiral. They're gathering their forces at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, exactly where intelligence said they would. 12 capital ships, 30 cruisers, and about 100 smaller vessels." She paused, allowing herself a predatory grin. "They think they're being subtle." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the command center. The hegemony, with all their supposed superiority, was about to attempt a surprise occupation of Earth, completely unaware that they were the ones walking into a trap. "Dr. Chen," Helena turned to the scientist, "explain to me again why their sensors can't detect our ships. I want to be absolutely certain before tomorrow." James nodded, pulling up a complex quantum diagram. "It's actually elegant in its simplicity. The entire galaxy bases their detection systems on quantum observation, the belief that anything real must exist in a measurable quantum state. But we took a different approach. Instead of trying to hide our quantum signature, we found a way to exist between quantum states." He manipulated the diagram, showing how the human ships slipped between the very fabric of space-time. "The quantum shadow drive doesn't make us invisible in the traditional sense. It places our ships in a state of quantum uncertainty, Neither here nor there, neither now nor then. Their sensors can't detect us because, by their understanding of physics, we don't exist until we choose to exist. And the power requirements. Helena pressed, though she knew the answer. That's the beautiful part, James smiled. Everyone else tried to brute force their way through the quantum barrier, which would indeed require impossible amounts of energy. We instead found the natural quantum folds in space-time, the places where reality itself leaves room for uncertainty, and we simply slipped through them. Around them, technicians and officers continued their preparations. The command center was a hive of activity, but it was controlled, precise. These men and women had trained for years for what would happen tomorrow, all while the world above maintained its carefully crafted masquerade of technological inadequacy. Helena walked to a different display, this one showing the consortium's Station Zero. The massive structure hung in space like a jewel, its occupants blissfully unaware that 5 human stealth ships were currently parked less than a kilometer from their doorstep. 10 years, she mused. 10 years of letting them think we were struggling with basic fusion drives while we built this. She gestured to encompass the entire command center. 10 years of absorbing their contempt while we surpassed them in ways they never even considered possible. Humanity's greatest advantage, James added, has always been our ability to overcome not just physical limitations, but conceptual ones. While they were perfecting their quantum detection systems, we were asking why we needed to be detectable in the first place. A junior officer approached with a tablet, offering it to Helena. She reviewed the data and nodded. The last pieces are in place. Our ships near Saturn report that the Hegemony's advanced scout vessels are exactly where we predicted they'd be. She turned to address the command center at large. Tomorrow, the Hegemony will launch what they believe will be a swift and overwhelming occupation of Earth. They expect to find a primitive civilization with a handful of clumsy ships. Instead, they'll find themselves surrounded by a fleet that their most advanced sensors can't even perceive. James checked his quantum feed one last time. The beautiful thing is, even after we reveal ourselves, they won't be able to replicate our technology. Not because we'll keep it secret, but because their entire technological philosophy would have to change. They'd have to admit that everything they believed about quantum physics was just one possibility among many. Helena nodded, remembering the years of careful planning that had led to this moment. That's always been humanity's real strength. Not our technology, but our ability to imagine solutions that others consider impossible. She checked the time. 14 hours until the Hegemony makes their move. Let's make sure everything is perfect. We're not just defending Earth tomorrow. We're rewriting the galaxy's understanding of what's possible. As the command center continued its preparations, Helena couldn't help but think of her friend Sarah Chen, still playing her part in the consortium. Soon, the mask would come off. Soon, the galaxy would learn that while they were laughing at humanity's apparent backwardness, they had missed something fundamental about the species they'd dismissed. Humans had never been interested in catching up to the galaxy's technology. They had been too busy surpassing it. The Hegemony's flagship Eternal Dawn emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Sol system, its massive form dwarfing the ice dwarfs that drifted nearby. Supreme Commander Vaxthar stood on his command bridge, his 4 arms clasped behind his back, as he watched the holographic display of Earth's solar system materialize before him. "Status of the human defense fleet?" he asked, mandibles clicking in what his species considered a smirk. 17 vessels detected, Supreme Commander, his sensor officer reported. Primitive fusion drives, basic kinetic weapons, nothing that could challenge even our smallest corvette. Vaxthar nodded, exactly as expected. The humans had spent the last decade fumbling with basic spaceflight, while the rest of the galaxy had continued to advance. This protective occupation would be over before their primary sun completed a single rotation. In the Antarctic Command Center, Admiral Helena Santos watched the Hegemony fleet's arrival through the quantum void sensors that humanity had kept hidden for the past decade. 143 alien warships, spreading out in a standard conquest formation. They thought they were being cautious. They thought they were prepared for any possible resistance. They were wrong. All Umbra vessels maintain quantum shadow status, she commanded. Let them come deeper into the system. Let them think they have the initiative. Around the solar system, nearly 300 human ships hung suspended between moments of time, invisible to even the most advanced alien sensors. Each vessel was positioned according to a plan that had been refined and perfected over years of preparation. Back on Station Zero, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the diplomatic chamber, maintaining her calm expression as the Archon of the Zarkax Empire made his announcement. It has come to our attention, he declared to the assembled representatives, that Earth's primitive technological state poses a risk to galactic stability. The hegemony of 1,000 suns has graciously volunteered to establish a protective presence in the Sol system, to guide humanity toward a more civilized existence. Sarah noticed how many of the alien representatives nodded in agreement. Some even seemed to pity Earth's apparent helplessness. She activated her neural transmitter with a subtle gesture, sending the prearranged signal. Showtime. In the void of space, the Hegemony fleet approached Mars orbit. Supreme Commander Vaxthar was already drafting his victory speech when his tactical officer suddenly straightened in alarm. Supreme Commander, energy spike detected. But that's impossible. The readings make no sense. Before Vaxthar could demand clarification, space itself seemed to ripple around his fleet. Where there had been empty void moments before, hundreds of ships now existed. Human ships. They had appeared from nowhere, materializing in perfect attack positions around the Hegemony fleet. Impossible. Vaxthar roared. Our sensors showed nothing. There was no quantum signature, no spatial distortion. In the Antarctic Command Center, Helena gave the order they had waited 10 years to deliver. All Umbra vessels, quantum shadow disengagement. Switch to standard space protocols. Let them see us. Across the solar system, human ships phased fully into normal space. They didn't emerge from cloaking devices or dimensional pockets. They simply chose to exist where before they had dwelled in the uncertainty between moments. On Station Zero, the diplomatic chamber erupted in chaos as holographic displays showed the impossible scene unfolding in the Sol system. The Archon's scales had lost their luster as he stared at the tactical display, his mind refusing to accept what he was seeing. Sarah Chen stood, her voice cutting through the pandemonium. The Sol system is protected, she announced, her words carrying the weight of 10 years of preparation. The Hegemony fleet is currently surrounded by vessels utilizing technology that your sensors cannot detect. Technology that, according to your understanding of physics, cannot exist. In space, Supreme Commander Vaxthar watched as his fleet's sensors tried and failed to get clear readings on the human ships. They were there, visibly, undeniably there, but they seemed to exist in a state that defied the very laws of quantum physics as the galaxy understood them. This is Admiral Helena Santos of the Earth Defense Fleet, a transmission cut through all frequencies. Your fleet is surrounded. Your sensors cannot track our ships because we exist in a state of quantum uncertainty. You cannot target what you cannot quantify. You cannot fight what you cannot comprehend. The message continued, each word hammering home the true extent of humanity's achievement. For 10 years, you believed you were observing our limitations. In reality, you were witnessing our patience. We could have revealed this technology at any time. We could have positioned our ships within your home systems, your military installations, your most secure facilities. And we did. Right now, there are Umbra ships parked less than a kilometer from Station Zero itself, ships that have been there for months, watching and waiting. In the diplomatic chamber, Sarah watched the color drain from the alien representatives' faces as they realized the implications. Their advanced civilizations, their supposedly impregnable defenses, their technological superiority, all had been compromised by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The Hegemony fleet will power down their weapons and prepare for escort out of the Sol system. Helena's transmission continued. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate response. You cannot hide from us. You cannot evade us. You cannot detect us until we wish to be detected. Supreme Commander Vaxthar, for the first time in his long military career, felt true fear. His mighty fleet, the pride of the hegemony, was trapped. The humans didn't just have superior technology. They had achieved something that should have been impossible, and they had done it right under the galaxy's collective nose. In the hours following humanity's revelation, Station Zero became a hive of frenzied activity. Emergency sessions were called, alliances huddled in private chambers, and the galaxy's most brilliant minds struggled to understand how they had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat alone in Earth's delegation chamber, watching the chaos unfold through the glass walls. The neural transmitter at her collar continuously fed her updates from both the Antarctic Command Center and the Umbra fleet surrounding the humbled hegemony armada. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Zixtal, the chief physicist of the quantum archaeologists. His crystalline form dimmed with what she recognized as anxiety. Ambassador Chen, he began, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of his distress. We, that is to say, the Scientific Council requests your presence. We have questions about the quantum shadow drive. Sarah smiled, remembering Dr. Chen's predictions about this moment. Of course, though I should warn you, understanding our technology requires unlearning much of what you consider fundamental physics. In the void of space, the hegemony fleet hung motionless, surrounded by ships that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. Supreme Commander Vaxthar had not moved from his command chair for hours, his proud posture replaced by a shell-shocked slump. Another status report, he demanded, though he already knew what his officers would say. Our sensors still cannot maintain locked readings on the human vessels, Supreme Commander, his science officer reported. They appear to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, defying our most basic understanding of reality. When we attempt to focus our targeting systems, the ships seem to blur, as if they're not fully committed to existing in our timeline. Admiral Helena Santos's voice cut through their communications again. Supreme Commander, your fleet has been stationary for 3 hours. We have prepared a quantum-synchronized corridor for your departure from the Sol system. I suggest you use it. In the Antarctic Command Center, Helena watched as the hegemony fleet finally began to move, their once mighty ships now resembling nothing so much as chastened children being sent to their rooms. Admiral, Colonel Tanaka reported, we're receiving requests for diplomatic contact from 37 different civilizations. It seems our demonstration has attracted some attention. Helena allowed herself a small smile. I imagine quite a few powers in the galaxy are reconsidering their position on humanity's role in galactic affairs. Back on Station Zero, the Scientific Council's chamber was filled to capacity. Sarah stood before the assembled greatest minds of the galaxy, her brother's quantum mechanics diagrams floating in the air around her. The fundamental flaw in your approach to quantum mechanics, she explained, was assuming that quantum states must be resolved. Our breakthrough came when we asked, what if they don't have to be? What if we could maintain that uncertainty and use it? A Meridian collective representative, their energy form flickering with agitation, interrupted. But that violates the most basic principles of quantum observation. A thing must either exist or not exist. Must it? Sarah asked, her voice gentle but firm. Your civilizations became so focused on manipulating defined quantum states that you never considered the spaces between states. Humanity looked at quantum uncertainty not as a problem to be solved, but as a feature to be exploited. In the void around Earth, the Umbra fleet ships continued their patrol, each one a testament to humanity's different way of thinking. They didn't fight against quantum physics. They embraced its strangest implications and turned them into an advantage. The real breakthrough, Sarah continued, wasn't technological. It was philosophical. We stopped trying to force reality to conform to our understanding and instead learned to work with the fundamental uncertainty of existence. The implications were starting to dawn on the assembled scientists. Their civilization's mighty quantum detection grids, their advanced sensor arrays, their supposedly foolproof security systems, all were based on detecting and measuring defined quantum states. They had built their entire technological civilization on the assumption that anything real must be measurable. Humanity had simply stepped sideways from that assumption. In the diplomatic chambers, the Archon of the Zarkax Empire was holding an emergency session. The political implications of humanity's revelation were even more staggering than the technological ones. Every major power in the galaxy had to face an uncomfortable truth. Their territories, their secret installations, their most secure facilities had all been potentially compromised. How long? The Archon demanded of Sarah when she returned to the main chamber. How long have your ships been able to move through our space undetected? That's an interesting question, Sarah replied, her diplomatic mask finally showing a hint of satisfaction. Since we exist in a state of quantum uncertainty while using the shadow drive, even we can't be entirely sure when and where our ships have been. Causality becomes flexible. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. Not only could they not detect humanity's ships, they couldn't even be certain of when or if they had been observed. In the Antarctic Command Center, Helena received a priority message from the Quantum Communications Array. She read it and smiled. It seems, she announced to her staff, that the Hegemony's ruling council is requesting an immediate peace conference. They're offering significant concessions in exchange for guarantees about the use of our quantum uncertainty drive. James Chen looked up from his console, where he had been monitoring the quantum field fluctuations around the departing Hegemony fleet. They're afraid, he observed, not just of our technology, but of what it represents. We didn't just surpass their technological understanding. We proved that their entire approach to physics was just one possibility among many. Helena nodded. That's always been humanity's greatest strength. Not our technology, not our weapons, but our ability to think beyond established limits. She looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of human ships hung in their state of quantum uncertainty, visible now only because they chose to be seen. We never needed to match their power, she said softly. We just needed to remind the galaxy that there's more than one way to solve a problem. 3 months after humanity's revelation of the quantum shadow drive, the galaxy had changed in ways few could have predicted. The Great Hall of Station Zero, once a theater for technological showmanship and political posturing, had become something entirely different, a place of genuine collaboration and exchange. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the same podium where, not long ago, alien representatives had mockingly dismissed humanity's capabilities. But now she faced an audience that hung on her every word with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and lingering disbelief. The Quantum Cooperation Treaty, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, represents more than just a diplomatic agreement. It symbolizes a fundamental shift in how we, as a galactic community, approach both technology and each other. In Earth orbit, the newly established Quantum Sciences Academy floated like a shining beacon. Its halls were filled with scientists from hundreds of civilizations, all working alongside human researchers to understand the principles that humanity had discovered. The quantum shadow drive had done more than revolutionize space travel. It had forced the galaxy's brightest minds to question their most basic assumptions about reality itself. Admiral Helena Santos walked through these halls, now serving as the Academy's military liaison. She paused to watch a group of alien scientists working with Dr. James Chen, their previous arrogance replaced by genuine eagerness to learn. The key, James was explaining to his rapt audience, was never about building bigger weapons or faster ships. It was about questioning the very nature of existence in spacetime. While you were perfecting ways to manipulate quantum states, we ask ourselves, what if we don't need to? In the depths of space, joint patrol fleets now move through the galaxy's trading routes. Humanity had agreed to share some aspects of their quantum uncertainty technology, but not as a weapon. Instead, they had proposed using it to create what they called quantum peace, the ability to maintain security through uncertainty rather than force. Supreme Commander Vaxthar, now serving as the hegemony's representative to the new Galactic Security Council, found himself working closely with the very humans he had once planned to conquer. The irony was not lost on him, but neither was the wisdom of humanity's approach. "We had become complacent," he admitted during a council session. "We believed that technological advancement meant making things bigger, faster, more powerful. Humanity showed us that true innovation often means looking at the problem from an entirely different perspective." Back in the Antarctic Command Center, now an international teaching facility, Colonel Tanaka led a delegation of alien military officials through the installation. They had come to learn not just about the technology, but about the thinking that had led to its development. "The quantum shadow drive was never meant to be a weapon," she explained. "It was designed to protect Earth by making conflict unnecessary. When you cannot be certain of your adversary's position or capabilities, you must resort to diplomacy." In the Great Hall of Station Zero, Sarah continued her address. "Some have asked why we chose to reveal our technology the way we did. Why not simply announce our capabilities? Why maintain the illusion of technological backwardness for so long?" She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. "The answer lies in human history. Time and again, we have seen that sudden technological advantages often lead to conflict. We didn't want to start a new arms race. We wanted to change the rules of the game entirely." The Archon of the Zarkax Empire, who had once dismissed humanity as primitive, now sat in the front row. His scales had regained their luster, but his posture was different, more thoughtful, less imperious. "The quantum uncertainty principles you've demonstrated," he said during the question period, "they challenge everything we thought we knew about physics. How do we proceed from here?" Sarah smiled. "We proceed together." Humanity's achievement wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. We discovered that there are spaces between the absolute states, possibilities that exist in the uncertainty. Just as quantum particles can exist in multiple states until observed, perhaps civilizations can exist in a state of both competition and cooperation, until we choose which reality to manifest. In Earth's orbit, the Umbra fleet maintained its vigilant watch, but now they were joined by ships from other civilizations, learning to navigate the strange space between quantum states. Humanity had not only changed how the galaxy traveled through space, they had changed how it thought about space itself. Dr. James Chen, addressing a conference of the galaxy's leading physicists, summed it up best. "The greatest discoveries often come not from finding new answers, but from asking new questions. Humanity didn't surpass the galaxy's technology. We simply looked at it from a different angle. And in doing so, we found something that was there all along, waiting in the uncertainty between moments." As the day drew to a close, Sarah stood with Helena at one of Station Zero's observation windows, watching ships from 100 different civilizations moving through space together. "Did we succeed?" Helena asked quietly. "Not just in defending Earth, but in changing how the galaxy thinks." Sarah watched as a group of young alien scientists hurried past, excitedly discussing new theories about quantum uncertainty with their human colleagues. In the space beyond the window, ships flickered in and out of quantum shadow state, no longer as weapons of war, but as tools of exploration and understanding. "I think we did something better," she replied. "We reminded the galaxy that there's always another way to look at things. That sometimes the best solution isn't to overcome an obstacle, but to find the spaces between where new possibilities exist." And in the vast expanse of space, humanity's greatest achievement continued to ripple through the galaxy, not as a wave of force or power, but as a wave of change in how civilizations thought about the very nature of reality itself. They had proved that true advancement comes not from building bigger weapons or faster ships, but from daring to think differently about what's possible. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest power lies not in what you can see and measure, but in the uncertainty that lies between the moments of certainty. And in that lesson, they had found not just a new way to travel through space, but a new way to exist within it.